First Timothy 6 uh, went on and on and on and on and on about all kinds of stuff last time. Let's look at verse 10 briefly again. It gets misquoted a good bit, but the value of it is not diminished by how it gets misquoted from time to time. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, for the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. When our love gets bent, nothing good happens from that. Okay, what makes love good or bad is it gets, the evidence of it is out here in outcomes. But what actually turns it good or bad is back here in motive. So what Paul's saying is some people get caught up and they develop a love for money. See, here's the thing. Things were never created by God to receive our love. People were created by God to receive our love. That old saying, it's really true, that the point of life is to use people or use things and love people. But as what happens often is we use people and love things. And when that happens, the value system gets turned upside down. And when I use people and love things, people are hurt, but so am I, because that diminishes it diminishes my expression of who God created me to be. Paul says the love of money is a root. Now think about this. It's not the root. It's certainly not the only root of evil, but it is a root of evil. Different people respond differently to this idea of the love of money. I have friends who, money, we'll use it, whatever. I make it. When I spend it, there'll be more there. I don't think they have a love of money, but there are times when I wonder if I have this distortion going on in my life where I am loving money. One of the ways I wonder, how do you judge if you're moving off balance with this thing about loving money, where I use money and I love people? Well, one of the ways I know if I love something is my thoughts are constantly drawn to that thing. Like I love my wife. My thoughts are maybe not constantly anymore. I do remember when it was constant. I couldn't concentrate on anything else. That was about 48 years ago. And today, my thoughts go back to her. Right? If you love something, your thoughts are attracted to go to that, whatever that person is or thing. How often are my thoughts attracted over here to money? How I can get more, how I can have more, how I can save more, or even spend more. I'm at the season of my life, I don't think I'm sliding for home yet, but I'm at the season of my life where I probably should be, no, it's not probably. I definitely have got to have some conscious thought and concern about when I'm no longer able to work and support my wife and myself with income from my work. We call that retirement. On the one hand, I don't want to retire ever. I don't see it wouldn't be healthy for me. I know me well enough to know that if I quit work and I just coasted, sat around on a couch, watched TV, played solitaire on my iPad, I'd get fat and grouchier than I already am. I would become even more cynical It would not be good for me. I know that for me, one of the things that makes my life worthwhile is feeling that I am doing something that matters. Now, I realize my body's not going to support this forever. I watched my dad, well into his 70s. He was counseling and working with people effectively. I can see myself in that. But here's the deal. His income diminished dramatically, right? Well, mine's going to. I have to have thought about, am I doing enough to be responsible enough? And that word enough is the key. How do I know golly, how do you judge enough? So it's a moving target. It's not static. It changes all the time. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for it. And since I'm not an economist, I won't be able to flesh out very many of those reasons. But in terms of my spiritual life, I know it comes down to this. There will always be an urge in me to not need God's provision because I'm human. I want to be in a position where I don't need. When I peel the onion back as far as I can, it goes way, way back to, I don't want to need God's grace. I want to be good enough that He's got to say yes to me. It's not about grace. It's about how good I am. I want to be that good. This is a broken part of me, but I think all of us share that brokenness. It manifests in so many different ways. I don't want my friends to have to release grace to me. I want to be so good that I don't need their grace. In my marriage, my kids, my grandkids, this is a very ugly and real problem for any serious Christian. And one of the other ways that it manifests is I don't want to have to depend, I don't want to have faith that God is going to meet my needs. I want faith to just be out of the picture. I want it to be sight. That's a tough deal. And I think that, along with several other things, some of them have to do with how I grew up. And the things I believed when I was a little boy that I've carried on as broken and inadequate as those judgments of value were when I was 10, 11, 12 years old. I've carried them all the way into my 68th year, going on 69. Well, that makes me susceptible to the love of money. I don't want to love money. I want to love God with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my strength, with all my mind, with everything there is in me. I want to love God. And then I want to love people as Jesus loved me. I get it mixed up. See, in that scenario, money is a servant. What is the function of money? The function of money is to give me a tool, not the tool, but only a tool to express my love for God and for other people. I think it even does us a little bit of good to set this idea of money historically. I lose track of this, and so I'm going to make you guilty of my sin, I guess. But in century 1, there was no such thing as universal currency. There was Roman currency, and it was required and accepted in various places in the Roman Empire. But every local jurisdiction had its own currency. So if you were in Ephesus, you had Ephesian currency. If you were in Jerusalem, you had Jerusalem currency. And within Jerusalem, you actually had temple currency. So when we think about money, the only time generally that we have to think very much about this currency issue is if we travel outside the U.S. In the last, I don't know, couple of decades, or maybe longer, but for a relatively brief amount of time, I have not had to worry when we travel outside the country because my bank card is useful and can be used in these other locations. I can get cash out of an ATM in Prague just like I was in Edmond. And if I do it right, I don't lose a whole lot to the currency transfer thing. But back in Paul's day, you that was not an available thing. So you had to figure out, okay, I have to always be thinking about where can I have my currency where I could exchange it for local currency. So the whole money thing was a little more complicated. And the other part of it was a person's wealth was generally not in the amount of money they had. It was in the amount of things that they had. This is partly due to the fact it was an agri-economy. Even though there were city centers, but still the basic world economy was about agriculture, and that had to do with property, land, crops, animals, and in the first century, slaves. So these are the things that I had equaled the wealth that I have. And when Paul uses the term money, the love of money, I think what he's saying is we're talking about wealth. When I love wealth, now, different thing in Paul's day, and forgive me for having drifted onto a bunny trail about currency, but in our day, the money aspect, it's huge because, and to a large degree, in the same way, although it was often a barter situation in century 1, but still had to do with the exchange of wealth. And Paul's saying when you worship, when you love wealth, you set yourself up for all kinds of problems in life. The love of money, the love of wealth is a root of all kinds of evil. I am an advocate of free enterprise. I'm a capitalist, and I don't see capitalism as an evil thing because I know whatever economic system is in play, evil people will do evil things. They will invent ways and create ways to do their evil. But I look at capitalism as that's the rubric we live within, and I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is that this desire for more and more and more, my love of wealth, gets in the way. And it's not just that it gets in the way. It tears down what God's good intention in my life is. What about you? How do you know? Do you love money? I'm not accusing you of it. I'm just asking you to evaluate your own life. Do you think about it a lot? Now, one of my real good friends is a financial advisor. He has to think about money all the time. He's not thinking about his money so much. He's thinking about how does he do the best with the money that he is managing for his clients. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, are you consumed with thinking about money, wealth, income? Be careful. Because if that happens, you set yourself up for all kinds of evil. Well, My time's up, so I'm going to close. See you next time.